Welcome to The Bottom Line, a wrap of the business news of the day. And the legal battle between government and a group of cigarette manufacturers is on hold for now. The Fair Trade Independent Tobacco Association, or FITA, was expected to approach the High Court in Pretoria today, but it says that government has made some concessions, which make the first part of its application null and void. Well, FITA says government has confirmed that the manufacture, transport and export of cigarette products is allowed under the level 4 lockdown regulations. Government has also agreed to hand over the records of a meeting during which the National Command Council decided to maintain the ban on the sale of cigarettes. However, the association says it will continue with the second part of its application, in which it wants the court to rule that the sale of tobacco products and cigarettes is lawful under the lockdown. No date for this hearing has been set. FITA's members include the cigarette manufacturers Carlinex and Gold Leaf Tobacco, and represents 80% of legitimate and licensed cigarette manufacturers in South Africa. Well, we are now joined by the chairperson of the Fair Trade Independent Tobacco Association, Sinenhlanhla Mnguni. Thank you very much for being with us, Sinenhlanhla. So to clarify, you're saying that government made various concessions which made today's court appearance unnecessary.
Yes, good evening, and thank you for having me on your show, Francis. So just to clarify, the matter did proceed in court today. However, there was no need to further argue or ventilate the issues, as there had been concessions from government. So, for instance, we had sought clarity in as far as what you alluded to earlier in relation to manufacturing and exporting of cigarettes, for instance. The issue of urgency was supposed to have been argued over. The handing over certain documentation which we had requested, such as the minutes of a number of decisions which related to the final decision by government to ban the sale of cigarettes, as well as the record of the decision which led to the promulgation of the current Regulation 27, which bans the sale of cigarettes and tobacco products. Now, due to the concessions which were made by the state in correspondence and in their answering affidavit, all that happened in court today was that an order of court was made reflecting that Part A had now been dealt with, and further confirming that the state had confirmed that there existed no minutes in as far as any issues relating to the voting pertaining to the decision to ban the sale of cigarettes, and further that even if they did exist, we would not be entitled to same. And they further then agreed that they would hand over the record of the decision relating to the promulgation of Regulation 27, which bans the sale of cigarettes and tobacco products. Now, they had agreed to hand over this record as soon as reasonably possible.
So there's no timeline on that, because, I mean, that'll affect when you go to court to argue the real crux of this. You want the sale of cigarettes.
There is a timeline. The deadline for them to hand over this document is the 26th of May 2020. However, we are pushing them to hand over the document as soon as reasonably possible, which is stated in the order, in order that we can move this matter on expeditiously. I mean, this is a matter that requires quick determination, as the further delay in the hearing of the application prejudices not only us as the applicant, but up to 11 million smokers in the Republic of South Africa who are affected by the current ban on the sale of cigarettes.
Yeah. So if it's the 26th, it sounds like they'll have to wait at least until the end of the month, though.
That is correct. However, as I indicated earlier, the state did state that they would endeavor to have the record delivered to us as soon as reasonably possible. We are hopeful, and we will exert the necessary pressure in as far as our attorneys communicating to the state that further delays in as far as handing over the documents to us will lead to sort of all sorts of inferences being drawn, because we submit that a document of this nature, which the state relied on to make a decision, which in essence created the ban on the sale of cigarettes, should be readily available. We do not understand why the state needs up to 2 weeks to provide such a document. And we submit that this is merely a delayed tactic by the state in order to avoid having this matter ventilated before the courts as soon as reasonably possible.
Yeah. You also say that government has now clarified that you can transport, export and manufacture cigarette products. Was that not clear in the regulations? Why did this have to go to court or just before to be clarified?
Look, we submit that it was clear in the regulations. However, you will note that the government's stance in as far as the tobacco industry is concerned has been rather rigid. So we took the cautious approach to initially write to government seeking confirmation of this issue, because as things currently stand in a number of industries, things are quite unclear in as far as the regulations are concerned. I mean, there was talks in the initial stages of the lockdown period of a CEO of a company of another industry getting arrested due to the incorrect interpretation of the laws. Now, we then sought clearance from government in order to proceed with this. However, they then seem to drag their feet in reverting to us, and even stated that they were still deliberating on the issue. We were therefore left with no alternative but to approach the courts, and as far as this is concerned, on an urgent basis in order to obtain that necessary relief.
So since level 4 kicked in, I mean, have manufacturers of cigarettes been making the product or not?
They have. I mean, like I said, confirmation of the permission to manufacture and export was only received on Thursday last week, which is Thursday, the 7th of May. So most of the manufacturers of cigarettes in South Africa only commenced manufacturing yesterday morning.
All right. Now, as you pointed out, there are 11 million smokers. But what about the people who feel that cigarettes are dangerous in any circumstance, especially in the midst of a pandemic? Tell them why you're fighting this.
Look, we accept that there are dangers associated with smoking. However, in our court papers and in many other engagements which we've had with government, we've never been advanced a reason which shows a link between smoking and the spread of the virus, because that is the important sort of factor that needs to be looked at. We understand that smoking, like many other products which is currently being sold, does pose health risks. But then you have to also look at other products such as sugary drinks, cakes, and other confectionery items, which also have been shown to pose health risks. And this is part of the issues that we canvassed in our court papers, that there seems to be an arbitrary nature within which government applies these regulations governing the lockdown period. And that is part of the argument we will be raising in court, which we feel will support our case that the regulations as they currently stand are irrational.
Yeah, and if you get these documents outlining how government made decisions, I agree with you, we would all like to know, I think. But could those minutes, say, change your mind? You're working on the basis that government has been irrational. If they show differently, will you be swayed by that documentation or those minutes?
Look, our argument already is compelling based on a series of events which have led us to the point that we're at here. Now, we know that, for instance, there has been no voting in as far as the ban on the sale of cigarettes, and therefore there exist no minutes in as far as any decisions taken by the National Coronavirus Command Council. The delay in delivering these documents will also lead to us amplifying our argument in as far as our view that the reasons by government for implementing this ban are irrational. You will remember that the main basis for our argument is that the Disaster Management Act does not empower government to make such a regulation, and that the minister has acted ultra vires in as far as this particular issue is concerned.
All right, thank you for your time tonight. We'll follow that case when it does go back to court, and there is an actual hearing. That was the chairperson of the Fair Trade Independent Tobacco Association, Sinenhlanhla Mnguni.